You're listening to the Renegade Blitz, the best podcast for Steelers fans by Steelers fans. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on renegadeblitz.com, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome back to the Renegade Blitz. I'm Ty Polk with Chris Ward and Brandon Walker. Back with you to talk, well, a victory Monday. The Steelers beat the Broncos. Well, everything's going all right in Steeler land, but of course, we're going to make sure that you know that there's still a lot of things to fix with this Steelers team, but still, you have to feel good about a victory like that, huh, gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, we just needed a win here after starting the season 1-3. Man, it would have been brutal if they fell to the Broncos and started the season off 1-4. It really was a must-win, really, already in October for the Steelers.
Yeah, it was. They came through, and you notice they've used the Brandon Walker game plan for success. Running the ball 35 times, 25 times per Ben throwing the ball, and one time in possession, 33-27. And Paris got 23 carries for 122 yards. Success.
Brandon Quality Control Walker, ladies and gentlemen.
Quality Control Walker. I tried quality.
I mean, that's really the recipe for success with this, the current state of Roethlisberger. They got to feed Najee Harris and limit Ben's attempts. 25, that's really perfect for him. They can't have him throwing 50 passes a game, especially with the offensive line. I mean, they have been improving lately, especially the last two games. But I mean, when you're one-dimensional and Ben's just dropping back there, I mean, that line's not that good where they'll just completely hold off everything.
They all had one sack, just one. Yeah,
and they Chukwuekorfor, he had a bunch of false start penalties there, but I mean, he was facing Von Miller, but if Von Miller only had 2 assisted tackles in the game, he had no sacks or no impact plays.
But I will say this about at least with the false starts coming off the tackles. I seen that George Stoya, who was on the show for our preview podcast with the Bengals, mentioned that Bobby Massey was also getting out a little bit early on false starts. I think that'll have to be a future point of emphasis with the NFL, because I've been noticing that a lot of blindside tackles have been getting off the ball a little bit earlier compared to most seasons that I can remember off the top of my head. It's truly noticeable. So I think that's going to be a point of emphasis sometimes in the future, the playoffs, and certainly next season.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I was getting ready to say that on that point. It was like the right tackle, Massey, it was about 5 times that I counted that he went off the ball real early. I was like, where's the flag? I was like, whoa. But you playing against TJ Watt, I don't blame you, but it was just so blatant, some of them. I'm like, how did not catch it?
I mean, there's a lot of things you could judge with that. I think that's more the league trying to protect star quarterbacks or even quarterbacks like Teddy Bridgewater. I think they don't want any more of those blindside hits that can really mess up a quarterback. Right. I mean, it's always the ones you can't see. And I know I just called Teddy Bridgewater a star, but I think he's good, but he's not a star in this league, but he's still a very good quarterback whenever the situation calls for it, like it was yesterday. But guys, I want to talk about a new game that I'm going to play probably every single week, just because it's really going to be up in the air with the Steelers' results. I mean, it could go either way. It could be a win. It could be a loss. So I think it'll be a perfect time to do this compared to last season when the glamour party, 11-0, everything is awesome. So I'm going to ask you guys to do this, and I'll start it off first. One positive thing you saw from this game and one negative thing you saw from this game. So I mentioned this on the Twitter account. I am the runner of the RBlitz Pod Twitter account, just so you guys know. I noticed that with Chase Claypool, that 59-yard catch and run, I was trying to sit back and think of when's the last time the Steelers had an extended yak opportunity especially after last year's situation in which everyone and their mother knew there was quick slants on each side. It was just who was going to open up that little bit of space and who was going to hang on to the ball. And that was the first time that I really thought of since the game that Minka Fitzpatrick debuted against the 49ers. That was the first time that I remember an extended yak from any Steelers wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been many. Bring up Brandon's Washington football team. James Washington, he did have a yak touchdown last year.
Yeah, was that against the Giants?
No, it was against Washington.
Okay, then I guess that game's been ex-nayed from the memory, but that was the first time where you could really sit back and really go, wow.
Right. There really hasn't been a lot. I mean, I'm sure if I think about it more, there might have been other ones, but that one I remember because it went for a touchdown. They obviously ended up losing that game, but it was definitely good to see some of the big, Ben going back-to-back weeks with opening drive touchdowns, both deep balls down the right sideline to Deontay Johnson, both of them in back-to-back weeks. So that's definitely encouraging. And Claypool really had a big game. As far as positive, I'll probably say that as the skill players really came up, showed up. Like as I mentioned, Johnson and Claypool, but really it was good to see the Steelers get that run game going because that's really what's been hurting them lately is just haven't been able to get that run game. Offensive line is really starting to improve. Credit to Adrian Clem, Matt Canada. They all called, or Adrian Clem, he coached a good game, I thought, where he got the offensive line ready and stuff.
Well, yeah. Well, piggybacking on the line, you didn't see that much chipping, having them help out. So the 5 guys up front for the Steelers really held their own against Von Miller and Shelby Harris and Johnson and the rest of them. So, and plus you could say Najee Harris, 23 for 122. Claypool with 5 for 130. Deontay Johnson had 2 big catches, one for a touchdown, another big deep pass. They're starting to make plays. Like I said at the beginning of the year, they're going to be your top 2 receivers. We had Juju, but it seems like now he's out of the picture. So we'll see how this develops, see how the line plays, and develop confidence and improve as the year goes along.
Yeah, that's one thing. The wide receiver situation, especially after Juju, it was interesting to see Claypool more in the slot. That's where it opened up that 59-yard catch and run. The primary defender was Von Miller. And so there's proof that, yes, linebackers, no matter what, even if they're pass rush specialists, are asked to sometimes defend against wide receivers. And it's not just the Steelers it doesn't go well against. It could be any other team in the league. So let's stop with the linebacker narrative there. But now let's move on to the negatives. And Brandon, you're probably going to catch a little bit of hell for the Ben Roethlisberger takes over the past couple of weeks, but they were warranted at the time. And I will say this. There was a couple key drops by Broncos players, and I'm going to look at, coincidentally, one player with the last name Johnson. I know we're expecting it from Deontay, but instead this time it was from Alexander Johnson of the Denver Broncos, a linebacker. He had 2 clear picks that would have certainly changed the momentum of this game, and then fortunately they just fell harmlessly to the turf. And I believe people were saying there was another dropped interception. So there's still a little bit of those issues with Ben Roethlisberger, even though he only threw the ball 25 times and had 15 completions. So there's still things to improve in terms of the Steelers' passing game, but for the most part, it was more mobile than it's ever been at any point of this season. And really, when you think about it, aside from the second half of the Colts game, that was the climb back of the Browns game, that was really the best the Steelers passing game has looked in a long time.
Well, the other pass that was almost intercepted was by the nose tackle Purcell from the Broncos, but Ray McLeod came in after like a DB and played DB and got and knocked it off to the ground, knocked his wind out. But I'm going to say the negative is the defense is showing a penchant of, especially in the second half, of giving up big plays. Big plays. We had a 139 to Sutton and allowing drives. As the game goes along, the defense seems to be getting weaker and weaker and weaker. The pass rush isn't getting there quite as well. I know they was coming back playing prevent, but you got to be able to close games out, and they have not, and they're not shown to have been doing that.
Yeah, I was going to go the same way with the secondary and giving up those big plays. I've kind of thought to myself lately, like, this defense is just not like 2019. It just they're not making the plays, like the turnovers. Like they only had one, and that was James Pierre at the end of the game there, who did bounce back. You know, he got beat for that touchdown by Sutton, but yeah, I think and they're missing Tuitt up front, and they're having some injuries. But I'll have to go on the defensive side. I mean, other than that, I can't really think of a major negative. Kind of like you mentioned, Ty, with Roethlisberger, he did play better, but, you know, he still has some accuracy issues, and, you know, he should have been picked off at least twice there.
Yeah, but again, it's always been that little bit of a difference that made it in the game. You remember last week, Minka Fitzpatrick could have had a run back on that blocked kick, and I believe he also missed an interception opportunity in that game, and then you also think of the Bengals game. That's how it is sometimes. It's just like these small little plays make such a huge difference, and no matter the quarterback in the NFL, if you let those balls hit your hand and then drop, you're giving guys an opportunity. Ben Roethlisberger is going to the Hall of Fame for a reason. Any opportunity that you have to put two hands on the ball, you make sure that you hold on to that thing for dear life, or else he will make you pay, even at this advanced stage where it's not often he will, but if you give him the chance, he will.
It's all about opportunities. Denver missed 3 opportunities. That's what good teams are supposed to do. And I always say, I think Denver's an average team, not great. It was a nice get-right game. They built the Steelers' confidence moving forward.
Can we talk about this at least the offensive lines? Well, I think it was their best showing, and that was the potential that they could show in this game in terms of everything. Because yes, they had that 1 sack fumble, but for the most part, there wasn't any of those oh no moments from the offensive line. Of course, aside from the false starts, but in this league with the pass rushing duos out there and a guy like Von Miller, you'll live with that occasionally. You don't want it often, but you'll live with it. But I thought that on all, that was a great job of what the offensive line did on Sunday, and that's what this team can expect in the future. There was a lot of glimpses of that against Green Bay and other teams so far this season, but I think you've seen what this offensive line could do if they get more time to gel and more time to mature.
Yeah, I think it was after the Raiders game where I said that, you know, we had to be patient with this offensive line because it's a young group. There's 2 rookies, and Kevin Dotson's only in his second year, and it was a complete overhaul from last year. So, they weren't playing well, so it was understandable for them to get a lot of criticism. But I mean, like as you mentioned, they did show improvement against the Packers, and it just really all gelled well together on Sunday against the Broncos, as they were really moving people off the ball and creating holes for Najee Harris.
Ditto for that. I always say that you can't judge an offensive line until November, around a little bit before Thanksgiving, because it takes about 8 to 9 games to build chemistry and for you to congeal, and then progressively the linemen, you have 2 rookies and a second-year player who's starting for the first time, and another guy that's coming from a whole different another team. You got 4 new starters. It's going to take a while. The question is how talented these guys are, and can their talent and their physicality make the adjustment and increase that learning curve, and make them play well.
There's a lot that can build on this, and I felt like that, especially with Najee, and you've seen the great footwork that he had against one run where he bounced off on the right side, and then he had basically one defender from the Broncos. And as much as James Conner is lighting the world on fire in Arizona right now, he doesn't make those moves with his feet. And he's able to create those things, and that's what you need. They just need to have him in more situations in which he can go one-on-one with a linebacker or a defensive back, and he'll make those plays. He'll get those mini explosive runs. I have to check the explosive run counter for him. I know he had at least one, but I don't think that would qualify as an explosive run, but it would qualify as a nice footwork run there.
Well, I think it's not even about, for me, he's going to get those type of plays. My thing, what they had yesterday, running it on second down and long, not being afraid, get them 4 to 5 for a manageable third down situation that Ben can make those conversions, because they were 7 for 12 on third downs in this ball game compared to Denver when they went 2 for 12. They went 3 for 4 on fourth down, Denver, but converting on third down, keeping the chains moving, wearing down that defense, keeping the offense on the field. It's a chain reaction, helping the defense out and everything like that. So that will make this offense run. Second, and those 4-yard runs on second down.
Yeah, that's a good point about the third downs. Big improvement from the Green Bay game, because I think the Packers were like 9 of 15 on third down, something like that. So Denver is terrible though on third down and in the red zone. I saw a Broncos reporter. He posted some stats and he said that they weren't good stats at all. But Bridgewater took him a while to really get comfortable. I remember tweeting during the game. I was like, man, there's like no rhythm with this offense. But then in the fourth quarter, he went off.
Denver came into the game 30th and third down conversions.
Wow. Yeah. They're not.
You're not winning with that.
Yeah. No. And their offensive line, you saw Mondu had a sack. That was a nice spin movie. Their offensive line's not too great either.
No, they're.
I was impressed with Javonte Williams. I think he's going to be a pretty good player. He runs hard. And credits James Pierre for having that touchdown saving tackle there also.
Yeah, we'll talk more about James Pierre because that last little drive they had there for Denver's opportunity, he kind of had like the both ends of the spectrum. It's like, yo, come on, man, you got to make that pick. If you get two hands on, you got to do it and then save the game. But one last thing I want to talk about is also the play calling on offense for the Steelers versus defense for the Broncos. I think one thing that really helped out the Steelers in this game is that the Broncos still stayed in too high. And you noticed how the Packers, the Raiders, the Bengals all decided to do that one high safety look that made it so difficult for the Steelers to have these long catch and run situations with Claypool and even get some headway with Najee Harris in the run game. But the Bengals, I'm just taking a look and just going off of memory and going back and looking at this game, I don't remember them having much boxes stacked out there against Harris. It felt like the team had free will.
Well, they weren't afraid of the running game at that point. So why would you could put 7 in the box and you can stop them. So as we move forward, I believe they may start doing that. Other teams will start doing that. It's a copycat league. I'm thinking like, Seattle, who they play next. We'll review them. They are known for having the one high safety and having that corner in the box. So that's going to be a more difficult challenge moving forward to next week than what we had yesterday.
Yeah, and just looking at some of the stats, Seattle's defense is not very good at all either. So, hopefully the Steelers can maybe build off of this performance they did against Denver. But, as we mentioned, like it all comes down to that running game and limiting Roethlisberger's pass attempts. He threw the ball downfield more and he's more efficient yesterday. So, hopefully they can improve and continue to build off of that.
Now let's switch up to the defense. And I want to continue on this play calling. The one interesting thing is we were expecting Noah Fant to be a huge part of this offense, and he really didn't get any big parts of that offense until late. They were using him as a chip opportunity against Watt in that pass rush. And while the Steelers pass rush probably didn't get home to at least the way that we're all used to with it, it was more like the Bills game in which like they were getting home in different ways, but it wasn't the way that you expected with the Steelers. Do you guys think that was more TJ Watt putting the fear of God into the Broncos? Because that was just a strange decision to have your most athletic receiving threat. Yeah, they had other guys out there that were punishing the Steelers, but still, that guy, Noah Fant seemed like the piece de resistance for the Broncos.
Yeah, I am shocked. I was shocked that they didn't involve him too much in the passing game until late. But if you're playing against TJ Watt and your line isn't that good in the first place, it makes it very hard, very difficult. And the Steelers didn't get home. He maybe got Bridgewater to the court like down twice, but it's all about the pressures. It's all about the hurries, especially on third down. So they need to work about getting home, but the thing is they need more turnovers against these teams that they are even or maybe a little bit less talented overall for moving forward. So my key is for the Steelers defense is not just TJ Watt, yeah, obviously. Cameron Hayward, obviously, is the one guy that can make those plays, and that's Minka Fitzpatrick. He needs to be better than what PFF grades him on a weekly basis. I don't know. They said he was the worst safety, but I don't know what he is now. Chris, if you have the grade of him right now.
I don't have it. I haven't seen anything lately, but I mean, he definitely has to be better. He did miss a tackle in that Javonte Williams 49-yard run. He did have a nice tackle there, an open field one. And he had a game high 10 total tackles, I believe. But they just you're right about the turnovers because they have four turnovers in 5 games.
Yeah, that's
just not good enough for the Steelers defense that last 2 years have been known to take the ball away. Denver, I think they were worried about TJ Watt and stuff, but I'm sure they're kicking themselves for their game plan because they just got going way too late. Like they have to, for them, they have to get off to a better start. And they were terrible on third down. That's going to hurt them too.
They should have gave the ball to Williams more. They should have established the running game sooner, and then they would be in those more comfortable 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 situations instead of 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. They just didn't capitalize on Williams because he is going to be a beast. He's like, I think he's the 2nd best running back in this class behind Harris.
And, that was a big penalty that they called him for, I guess, spiking the ball after his big 49-yard run.
Yeah, they did.
I didn't really get a chance back to go see what what he did, the nature of the spike, but that was big because that backed him up a little bit. And then Devin Bush had a big sack, and then they're like on the 17-yard line. It was like 3rd and goal from the 17-yard, and they ended up kicking a field goal. So those little points definitely matter. And how big of a play was that leverage penalty they called? Because the Steelers, they kicked a field goal, a 51-yarder by Chris Boswell. Then they ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive.
Right. Well, the penalty from Williams is because he didn't score. They don't care if you spike the ball when you score. When you don't score, that's a delay of game.
Yeah, a lot of moments from the Broncos. I mean, I think that's the first time I've ever seen a leverage penalty. It's obviously a rule that should be in the game, but it's just like it's not anything you expect to see. And you remember last year with the Cowboys, they were just jumping over the top of the line and blocking Boswell in Cowboy Stadium down there. So, yeah, I mean, that's one way you could call that penalty. And also, you have to really give big hats off to James Pierre. He balled out in ways you didn't expect, but he came out with the biggest play of the game, of course. And let's also talk about him in the secondary. And again, the big story here is still Minka Fitzpatrick. Again, he's not the worst safety in the league, but he's playing below the standard that you expect from him right now. And I think it's it's kind of changed up a lot of what the Broncos attacked them. I mean, that went with Kendall Hinton going down the sideline, a couple toe taps there. There was just so many other ways that the Broncos offense was attacking the Steelers secondary. You think if they use Fant there, it's probably a win for the Broncos.
Yeah, it's the way I think their strategy was a little bit off, but like I said, Fitzpatrick like Ryan Clark says, if he's not getting interceptions and being a ball hawk, how good is he really? What good is he? What's the benefit he's bringing to your defense in an impactful way? So
here's the question that I've been seeing a lot, and I was in other Twitter spaces, and they go like this: how much does he miss having guys like Mike Hilton and a healthy Cam Sutton and also Steven Jenkins out there? Because especially Jenkins is a man-to-man beast. Hayden can also do things in man-to-man situations, and I think that really played away with that. You think back to the interception against the Colts. A lot of that was just great defense by his other players, forcing that ball in there from Hoyer. So I view it as sometimes it's the sum of the parts right now for Minka Fitzpatrick, and it's really going to be based on how well can the Steelers secondary develop this season, because if there's any other way, I don't think Minka's going to get the stats that everyone expects.
Yeah, I think they do, because I think they missed a lot, and I still think, and Hayton's getting a little older, getting a little long in the tooth. He gave up a couple of plays yesterday, so we'll see how that goes later in the season. I still think he should move to safety. That would help, but you can't do it in the middle of the year.
I wonder how much the Carl Joseph add-on from the practice squad is supposed to help him with that.
Yeah, I didn't see him much on. I don't even know if he had any defensive snaps.
I don't even think I think he dressed, but he didn't play. I don't remember hearing the name Carl Joseph, and I know that with Fox they would have mentioned he came off the practice squad at least once.
I think he definitely misses those players' presence, and not having Tuitt up the middle is definitely a factor too. But I mean, he just got to start making a little bit more impact plays. I mean, there has been plays where he could have made where he just dropped the ball. I mean, they were kind of like tough catches or whatever, but for a player of his status, he has to make those type of plays.
Yeah, because he is a little bit of a feast or famine type cornerback, safety. So what do you think about the linebacking core right now?
I think Bush is playing a little bit better. He had another sack, back-to-back weeks with a sack. Schobert, he hasn't really stood out. He hasn't been a real standout player, but I did see some reports that he played better yesterday, but I haven't got a chance to go back and watch the game again.
Yeah, because I have to look at the stats of what he had. I think he had about 4 to 5 tackles.
The one thing with Bush, he's not going to be a pass rusher from the middle linebacker spot, and largely middle linebackers in the Steelers defense are kind of still used as defenders of the past than anything else. But still, anytime he gets the opportunity to rush out there, you want to see him make those quarterback sacks. And that's what he's done the last 2 weeks. So anything that can make offensive lines think, oh, we have to account for this guy as well, that can help out TJ Watt. That can help out Alex Highsmith. That can help out Melvin Ingram. You want him to have those plays out there, and that's important because, again, Steelers middle linebackers, they're brought out there for pass defense, not going out there for pass rush and run defense as well. So that's big this week. And now I guess we could talk about James Pierre and his game. And of course, James Pierre, he made the game-winning interception. He dropped the one a few plays before that would have been a highlight reel first interception, but I think anything that gets you the game-winning interception is automatically going on your highlight reel regardless. But, well, let's talk about it, Brandon, because you were the guy that was the most high out of this entire group on James Pierre. Are you impressed at least with his development? Because he did get burned earlier in the game, and there's a difference between a lot of Steelers cornerbacks in the past. They would let that build up on them, and he did not let that build up on him.
Yeah, he did not blink at all. I mean, you're going to get burnt. It's going to happen, but he stepped up his game. He could have got another pick. He could have gotten another he got the game-winning interception. I just like his makeup. I saw him in camp, and he just stood out. He flashed. He came in as an undrafted rookie. Kid's got heart. He's got passion. I know this is like basic terms, but I just saw something. I'm like, this guy could be a starting corner by the end of the year, because I think he's this. What I want to say now I get to do the big. I think he's their second best corner right now. It'll be Sutton, and then Pierre.
It was definitely a good, not letting that play, that getting beat on a touchdown, let him bother him. And, he said after the game that he knew they were coming back at him. So it was good. As Ty mentioned, he almost had that interception and that on that game-sealing interception. Or he almost had an interception, prior on that drive before he did actually haul in the ball there. But, on his game ceiling interception, he basically ran that route right with Cortland Sutton. Like it was just perfect coverage, and Bridgewater, like he looked like he had no one else open on that play. It was just perfect defense by the Steelers, and a great job by Pierre. I know during the game I did, because that's the second time this year that he got beat deep, and he did struggle with some other receivers this year, but that's going to happen with young cornerbacks, like Tomlin mentioned after the game. So credit to Pierre.
How tough are we on the Steelers secondary? Because it seems like they're going back to that well of the undrafted corner in a lot of situations. Yes, Trey Norwood, they did draft in the 7th round, but he's a safety by trade who also played slot corner. How much time do you think these guys should get? Should they get the entire season and figure it out? Should it be similar to what Brandon said about the offensive linemen, in which they should get to around Thanksgiving so we could see what they really are right now?
Yeah, you have to give it time, especially for Pierre. Like, he's an undrafted free agent from last year. He didn't play much last season. So, this is only his second year or so, and really the first time as a starter or major contributor. So you do have to be patient with it. I mean, it's still early in the season, and, fans were frustrated that he keeps on getting beat deep, but, on that last drive, he came through. So, you have to tip your hat there to Pierre.
Well, yeah, I still think once you get your full front 7 healthy, when Tua gets back, that's going to help. That'll help the scheme. That'll help the secondary get that extra pressure that they need to, cover for 45 seconds and make that play. And it'll help if Mr. Edmonds, we talk about Minka Fitzpatrick, it can help that Mr. Edmonds here, former first-round pick, could step his game up as well.
Yeah, I saw some people saying that he played like a great game yesterday, and like I mentioned, I haven't got a chance to go back and look at, but we also mentioned that Fant, like they were keeping him in for protection, because I saw people crediting Edmonds for locking up Fant. So I don't know, Edmonds is he's okay, but he has the same issue with Fitzpatrick where they just they don't make splash plays really.
They don't. And plus, like we said earlier, we're going back. It was probably because of the way Denver was using Fant that they couldn't expose that matchup with Edmonds and Fitzpatrick. It could be that too. So we always think about, and Fant didn't do anything, but what are you going to do if the coaches are not giving you the ball and you use the chip because your line ain't that good?
Yeah, there's a lot to say about that, and it's weird how safeties get graded, especially in a situation in which Fant wasn't what you would expect from that Broncos tight end. They were keeping them in, so naturally it's just like Edmonds plays as a box safety, so of course you look at the run game for for the Broncos. I think you put it on that, and I go that. I mean, Javonte Williams did a couple nice things out there. Melvin Gordon. There's so many Melvins on both sides that just confuse me. But he also filled in pretty nicely as well. I think it's tough to judge the safety situation for the Steelers because week to week everything's so different. Yes, Edmonds has had some great games, but again, there's so much you could judge with the safety situation for the Steelers where it just needs more time. It's about to be mid-October. So now the final thoughts for us, I think we'll go quickly over to special teams. Boz is God, as always, and Presley Harvin had some field swamping punts as well. I think we got to see what Presley Harvin could be in this game. He had punts of 53 and 62, if I remember off the top of my head. So again, that's a good sign there. I mean, people were trying to say that they need Jordan Berry back, and he's just going to be better in a dome. That's just the way that he punts.
Right.
Yeah, the one was a 63-yarder, man. I think Boswell mentioned after the game that he murdered the ball, and he really did, good back there for Hardman after that 20-yard punt last week, which really hurt the Steelers as they had a short field, and Rodgers ended up driving down the field and scoring a touchdown there for the Packers.
What can I add to that? Harbin played like a beast, punted like a beast. Boswell, it's a shame that he has never made a Pro Bowl. Well, you played in Justin Tucker's year.
He made the Pro Bowl once.
Yeah, he made it that 2017 year where Steelers had like a bunch of Pro Bowl.
Okay, I did not. Okay, I'm sorry.
He literally won them games, man. That like that 13-3. I can probably not even go back and count it. 5 of them were probably game-winning field goals by Bosworth.
Yeah, it was because I remember a few of them, quite a few, writing for the point of Pittsburgh at the time.
And then he had that 2018 season where things fell apart and people. Where they wanted him out. But credit to the Steelers for sticking with him because he's definitely a reliable kicker.
He's the third most accurate kicker in NFL history right now.
Third most. That is good. That is an excellent stat. But return game, you could get a little bit more out of that. But McDonald did make that play. He made that. Well, it was on offense, but. He stopped the interception.
It's good to see that not only Fox, because you remember last year with Fox, they kept on calling Ray McLeod Ray McDonald, and also Mark Schlereth just called him Ray McDonald at the beginning, corrected himself, and you just called him Ray McDonald. So I guess that's his new alias. Whenever he's not doing well, his name's Ray McDonald.
Yes.
Here's a stat that I just saw, Brandon. That Najee Harris is the first NFL rookie running back to register a 100-yard rushing game and a 100-yard receiving game in the same season since Saints running back Alvin Kamara in 2017.
God, that was another name. Remember, I used to botch his name too. When we first did the show in his rookie year, I was like, he talked to us. I said, number 41, and so I finally got it right. But that's an accomplishment. I'm telling you, he's the best. He's the best weapon that you have. You got to utilize him. Keep utilizing. Go with the Brandon Walker game plan to success.
And
somebody must have reached the Warriors.
A lot of people were bashing the Steelers for drafting Harris in the first round, like guys like Warren Sharp, some analytic people, but really they didn't really have much of an option as far as like when they talk about offensive linemen. And one offensive lineman wasn't going to change everything for this is a young group, like we mentioned. It's going to take a while for them to fully develop. And, I think getting a featured back like Harris was the right move for the Steelers.
All right, final thoughts, guys, on the injury front for the Steelers. And coming back to practice has been, an interesting thing to see with the Steelers. Zach Banner is closer to coming back from his ACL tear in the first game last year. I expect to see him after the bye week at one point. Stephon Tuitt practiced for the first time last week. He should be making an appearance after the bye week as well. But the big story, of course, is Juju Smith-Schuster done for the season with a dislocated shoulder. His recovery time will take 4 months, and obviously the season basically ends in the end of February, so there's no chance unless he does a heroic comeback and somehow the Steelers make it to the Super Bowl, but that is not likely. So it's really sad to see that this could potentially be the last time you see Juju Smith-Schuster in a Steelers uniform.
Okay, let me ask a question. What do you think Juju's legacy is here in Pittsburgh?
Complicated, as always. I mean, you look at him in the time with one of the best receivers probably in NFL history. He feasted, and he had some glimpses of being a true number one in Pittsburgh without him, but in the end, there just wasn't enough in the tank for him. At least there wasn't enough in the chamber to firmly say that he was a true number one receiver.
Well, I'll never forget his rookie season with the whole, the bike story and Juju laying out Burfict. So I always remember that rookie season for Juju, and he was a great player. I think he did. I won't say maybe great, but I think he was a good player. Like, he was a contributing player. I never thought he was really a number one wide receiver, but he was a solid number two. I think he's a great guy. I think he does great stuff off the field. He's probably not. He's not. I don't think he's on the same level as far as Deontay and Johnson and Chase Claypool. I think they're just more talented overall receivers. But Juju's great in the slot. He doesn't have like their. Chase Claypool is just a freak of nature the way he's built, and then Juju just can't separate like Johnson can. So, definitely a crushing blow. He bet on himself to come back on a 1-year deal, and then to only 5 years. I mean, only 5 games into the season to get injured, and he's out for the rest of the year. That's really good. I don't know what's going to happen after this year. His money value is definitely going to go down, I think, without having played most of the year. But I don't know. Do you think he's back in Pittsburgh next year, Ty and Brandon? There's
a roadmap in which it's a possibility, but it depends. If the Steelers do get that veteran quarterback that Mike Tomlin has been hinting that the Steelers will look after in the offseason, I think there is a possibility. And
it won't be for much what he wants, though.
It's gonna be a 1-year proof. It's gonna be another
1-year deal.
I think he might get a 2. He might get a 2-year just this time to maybe get a little bit of security, but I don't know. Even that 2-year deal is unlikely. You guys may be more right with the 1, but I think he'll try to shoot for a 2 at the very least.
I say, you know what? I think you're right. You might be right. I say 2 years, 12. 2 years, $12 million. I say the Steelers are going to go after a veteran quarterback. And I don't know if they're getting Aaron Rodgers, but they're going to find. I could see like somebody like a Jimmy Garoppolo becoming available. Steelers grabbing him, and they grab another guy in the mix in maybe the 2nd and 3rd round. And I think Juju could come back for that. Come back for that.
So that would talk about like a veteran quarterback, like a placeholder. You don't think they'll go first round quarterback still?
Number one, we might crash. I joked to say crash. They're going to crash and burn, go 4-13. They're going to be closer. They're going to be closer to 500. So they're not going to be drafting. I don't think they're going to be drafting that high to get a top-notch elite quarterbacks. And I don't think there's a quarterback that's elite that comes out this year anyway. Because the way I've seen him, remember the guy from Oklahoma is already on the bench.
Yeah, that's true.
They're not even looking at him. I've seen a lot of people say Matt Corral in Ole Miss is the guy, potentially.
There's maybe 4 quarterbacks that people been, they're talking about that guy from Nevada, Carson Strong. Malik Willis too is another name. There's like 3 or 4 quarterbacks I think that might be mentioned here in the first round of the draft next year.
Yeah, we're gonna get more information as the season goes on. That's just one of those things where you can't see it.
Also,
it's too early. It's way too early. Remember, last year people were kind of crapping on the quarterback class outside of Lawrence up until maybe around November. So
No one knew about Zach Wilson. We mentioned that.
Exactly.
So you got to be patient with the. People always say, "Oh, the quarterback, it's terrible," but
It's terrible until it's draft night, and suddenly it's amazing.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Unless of course Geno Smith, who is potentially going to be the starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, is up in the top 5 alongside EJ Manuel. But I digress.
Yeah, that quarterback class was pretty bad. 2013, that was probably the worst. 2007 was the worst class. That was with Jamarcus Russell, Brady Quinn. The best quarterback, I think, was Kevin Kolb.
Yeah.
Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
Have you guys remember? Do you guys remember him from Houston?
I remember him because, again, secondary Cardinals fan. I do check them out occasionally. He was supposed to be the guy after Kurt Warner, and
he was actually supposed to be the guy after Donovan McNabb.
Yeah, that as well. But instead it was Foles for a little bit, and then they biffed that until he came back and Philly special Super Bowl MVP. Ta-da. But regardless, guys, that's it for our preview podcast. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Please rate this 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And of course, leave a review wherever you can leave reviews at. Like, subscribe, hit the notification ding bell. Just make sure that no matter what, you're tuning into the Renegade Blitz podcast whenever you can. And so that's all for us. For Chris Ward and Brandon Walker, I'm Ty Polk. Thank you for tuning in to the Renegade Blitz.
Thank you for listening to the Renegade Blitz podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at @RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on renegadeblitz.com. Like us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. The Renegade Blitz podcast is available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you can listen to podcasts.